so much for joining me. I'm Paula Fellingham. We're going to talk about the third part of the disease of the three C's that I call it, and that's comparing, complaining, criticizing. It's the criticizing we're going to talk about. And do you remember in that children's movie Bambi, and Thumper said, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. I wanted to tell you a little bit of a little story. I was many years ago, we left Los Angeles when we started our family. We didn't want to raise the kids there. We went up to a beautiful spot, the Olympic Peninsula in the state of Washington. And up there, you know, we came when there was just one stoplight. It was a country town. We had a little mini farm. And it was such a change of pace, but I couldn't help but recognize right away the difference between the people there and how they talked and their level of comparing, criticizing, and complaining. I noticed it because there was such a difference. So back in LA, and we didn't leave there till we were in our 30s. We had a couple of children, and so I had lived my life there. And I had noticed how people criticized others, you know, who didn't wear the designer clothes, or if they didn't have the right kind of car, or their hair wasn't, you know, there was just so much criticism. And when I got up to Sequim, Sequim, it spells like sequin, but it's Sequim, Washington. And I noticed this huge difference because the people, their priorities were different. They didn't have enough money to have the designer jeans. They didn't care about how, you know, the hairdo or whatever, the cars. I remember one of the young men in the high school drove the tractor to high school. I mean, it was just a different way of being. But I loved it because these people had a sense of gratitude. There was more kindness. There was just an openness, and there wasn't this critical, comparing, criticizing, and complaining. It was just minimized. And then when I started traveling globally, and I went, one of my favorite places on this planet is in Nairobi, Kenya, Africa. And 1 million people live in 1 square mile in the Kibera slums, where I have friends. And these beautiful people, they're not focused on the things like I just talked about. They're focused on the basic things. Their attitudes are different. They're so grateful, and they're focused on how to feed their children and their shelter and their, you know, the love they have for their families and taking care of each other. And there's this beautiful sense of community there. And they're certainly not focused on other people. They really are needing to band together and help each other as best they can. And so I've noticed this through the decades, that this criticism is a habit, and it starts with your thoughts again. It's like you think that critical thought and you just label it. Hey, that was critical. And you replace it with a better one, and then you focus forward. And those are the keys. And I'd like to end reminding you again about what Thumper said in that beautiful movie Bambi. And he said, you know, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. Thanks, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me.